conspiracy is a story of the Second Battle of Manassas Bull Run, which depends on whether you're a northerner or a southerner, because southerners called it by the nearest depot. That's where they got their food and their ammunition from, by stealing it from the north. And the northerners call it by the nearest creek or stream or body of water. So it's usually called the Second Battle of Bull Run. But it's also about a man. And what's so important about this man, Major General Fitz Porter, is what he did that day during that three-day battle in 1862 in August changed history. You may wonder, well, how did one man change history? I'll tell you how he did it. Robert E. Lee was attacking with his Confederate Army the Union forces under Pope, who was not a very good leader of men. Porter had been ordered to join Pope to chase Stonewall Jackson, who was part of the Confederate forces, and Pope didn't know where he was, but he thought he knew. He was at a place called Bristow Station. Well, when Porter came up, there was no enemy there. So Jackson had wandered off a way different than Pope thought. And again, Pope gave him an order, go get Jackson. And this time he couldn't do it because there was someone in his way. It was the entire Confederate Army. And Pope didn't know it. What he did, knowing, being the good general that he was, General Porter held that army with all of his will and his 10,000 men for nearly 10 hours. And because he held Porter, because Porter held Lee from making the assault on the disorganized Union troops at daybreak, when he had planned to, and it was held up by 10 hours, it gave Pope a chance to finally realize the enemy was at the gates. He reorganized his troops and got across the Bull Run Creek to get ready to defend. Well, Lee and Longstreet and the rest of the Confederate forces had defeated the army, but they could no longer destroy it. They could have destroyed it had he not stood in the way of Lee's forces who were attacking Pope, because Robert E. Lee would have destroyed the Union Army. He was 40 miles from Washington. He would have marched to the doorsteps where Lincoln was and said, we're now two countries. And we would have become two countries, except what Porter did that day. And yet he was found guilty of cowardice and disobedience by Pope, because they had to blame someone for the loss. Pope was the fair-haired boy of the Union people, mainly Stanton, who was Secretary of War. So they found him guilty, and the newsboys in Washington in 1863 blasted the news as the crime of the century. Everybody knew about it in 1863. 20 years later, after all kinds of hardship, he finally had a rehearing, and that's when General Schofield, who was in charge of the rehearing, said not only was Porter innocent of all charges, but he was responsible for saving the Union Army from destruction. When he died, 2 years later, he had a simple gravestone. It said 5 words, only I have fought the good fight.